Hello there, YouTube, and welcome to a cat stream yet again. Today we have the one true voice. Sorry, I meant the one voice. No, even better, the voice of one. I'll get there one day. We have Orwell Goode on as well, and obviously we have the laughing ogre.
Hi, everybody. Happy Sunday.
Yay, Sunday! Sorry, yeah, by the way, thank you for everybody for actually turning up to watch the stream on a Sunday. But obviously, with all the news that's coming out of Germany at this moment in time, I thought it was a good idea to do a little bit of a stream and just see what everybody actually thinks about what's going on. I mean, there's bits and pieces that are coming out all right, and different bits and pieces, terrorists that have been caught, and there's fucking all sorts. So I just wanted to have a quick chat with a couple of people that know what they're talking about, and I thought I'd just come along for the ride.
And why am I here?
So yeah, with that being said, I think it's a good time to actually, well, first of all, introduce everybody. As I said before, we got one voice. I've already done that. Fuck me. It's Sunday. It's Sunday. It really is Sunday. If Ogre, if you wouldn't mind taking us through the actual story for today, then that would be perfect.
Absolutely. This is coming out of the Daily Mail. I think we had another article on the same thing in the AP, but we went with the Daily Mail just because they give us a lot more information. So here the big headline says, German police find AK-47 at killer driver's flat and discover his van was booby-trapped with a pistol connected to a wire. After 48-year-old with far-right links murders two by mowing down diners before shooting himself dead. And then this is just recaps it here, so I won't bother reading these smaller headlines. It's just saying the same thing in bullet points. It says German police found party firecrackers, an ornamental, I don't know, a Kalashnikov, AK-47. Yeah, I should have known that. Kalashnikov, and it says ornamental, which leads me to believe it does not fire. AK-47 and the blank cartridge gun he used to shoot himself at the flat and in the minibus belonging to the man who mowed down diners before shooting himself yesterday. See, this is, I mean, I don't know how much you want me to read of this, but let's keep in mind what the terms are using here. Blank cartridge gun that he shot himself with, and ornamental Kalashnikov AK-47. But these were not actual firearms. Two people died and dozens were left injured, six crucially, after the vehicle was driven at high speed towards families outside the popular Grosser Kaplanker bar in University City, Munster, 300 miles west of Berlin. Authorities identified two fatalities of Sunday's crash as 51-year-old woman from the county of Leuenberg and a 65-year-old man from the county of Bochen. Their names weren't given, as is customary in Germany. And we go on. Terrified diners watched the driver, named locally as Jens R., 48, who lived in Munster Flat, shot himself with a cartridge gun, later found by police inside the vehicle after the attack at 3:27 p.m. local time. And I can continue if you'd like. It pretty much says the same thing. I think we have a lot of the relevant points here. It goes on down to talk about the firecrackers, about the kind of van he was driving. It was a Volkswagen. And if you want, I'll continue to skim as we discuss it.
I would say, sorry to interrupt you there, Ogre, but I would say that alt-right links could just mean he was subscribed to Lawrence Southern. You know, I would have to see actual evidence that he was somehow linked to some extremist group. You know, so I would take that bit with a pinch of salt.
I would probably have to second that with one voice. Voice of one. I'll get there. It's really bad
It's
for me.
4 words. It's 4 words, and you are English, and you speak the English language.
Yeah,
I
but
just
it's
stick with
Sunday. I
voice.
can't be
Easier for me.
asked. I mean,
I stick with the voice. I like how they stuck that in there, boys. I've got to hear everybody's opinion on this, but this is looking so suspect. For one thing, they say, as you said, it could be Laura Southern. He could have watched a Laura Southern video one day, or caught or accidentally bumped into Tommy Robinson, you know, on the sidewalk, just brushed against him on the shoulder and said, "Excuse me," one day, and that could mean alt-right leanings. So there's that, but also this. I mean, they're talking about firecrackers, ornamental Kalashnikovs, and blank cartridge guns. I don't even know why they would mention these things. I guess the thing that he shot himself with, but what does an ornamental, in other words, a knockoff, just a a fugazi. What does that have to do with anything?
Absolutely nothing. It just shows you that it is supposed to insinuate that he's a bit of a gun nut. But to carry on from what Voice was actually saying and what you're saying, you have to remember that in Germany, far right or right alt-right links just means that you're against immigration. You know, you're against the government to the point where people will actually come around your house to, you know, police you on the internet. It's even worse in Germany than what it is in England for that. We have to also remember that this bloke is or supposed to be mentally ill as well, or has mental problems. So it's very, very similar to what's her name? Oh, the Joe Cox. It's very, very similar to the person who shot Joe Cox. He apparently had alt-right links and was mentally ill. It's almost like a carbon copy.
I would say about him, it was shown that he did have a small Hitler shrine in his basement. So it's there was proof for his ideological mindset.
I know.
Wait, man! I've got to put my headphones on because I got to turn this down so low so it don't echo. I can't hear you. He had what that proved he had ties to that Voice?
He had a whole lot of Nazi memorabilia, etc.
Yeah. So did Lemmy. So did Lemmy of Motorhead.
Yes, but Lemmy didn't murder anybody.
Well, but he was a little bit fucking crazy. I'm just saying that I don't know what that has to do with anything.
You see, it's different if you're an actual historical collector and have, you know, Allied memorabilia and German memorabilia and Italian memorabilia. You know, it's all about, you know, historical context. But if you just have one kind, you know, it's sort of suggestive in a way.
Well, I just wanted to add to it before we carry on. What Voice is actually trying to say is that it's a case that he actually had a shrine to Hitler. It wasn't just a case of him collecting bits and pieces and putting it in a different thing. He had a shrine. It was his ideology, but that's not what this bloke is. We don't know
I'm
what
definitely
it
not
is.
going to try to argue on this because obviously, like you said, the man murdered some people, and it just it doesn't look good. It doesn't look good. I just have a couple Nazi pieces myself, and as a Jew, I wouldn't want anybody to say I was a Nazi. Or when they say that to Ben Shapiro, I wonder what the fuck goes through his head, man. Because I've been outright called a Nazi as of yet, and I'm kind of not looking forward to the day. It's like, you fucking shit me, they wouldn't have me.
You Nazi.
Well, now that's fixed up, so that cherry's broken. Well, we got to get with this. I want to hear our other guest too, because I'm so interested in a lot of stuff that you tweet out on Twitter, Orwell, and also if someone didn't know any better, they would assume that you were alt-right. Maybe if you ever went batshit crazy and killed a bunch of people in town, not that you would, maybe they would say, it wasn't just because you got pissed that day and shot some folks. It'd be like, oh, look at his alt-right ties. Is that what we're looking at with this? I mean, is it just framing somebody up in the narrative they want?
Oh God, they'd say a lot worse than that about me. I mean, as the Voice of One was saying, if you just watch a Lauren Southern video once and you don't delete your search history, you're going to have alt-right or far-right links. And again, it's this whole thing in Europe. And I think it's slightly worse in Germany for it because, I mean, they try to obscure the identity of a lot of perpetrators of rapes and murders and crime by saying that they're Southern looking. So are they from Bavaria? No, obviously not. They're North African or Middle Eastern. But nevertheless, that's what the media uses in order to cover up certain crimes committed in Germany. And the other thing is that anything to the right of Lenin is just far right now. And I believe that it's a coordinated smear attempt by the mainstream media. And by the mainstream media, I mean including outlets such as The Spectator and the Daily Telegraph, which you'd think are traditionally centre-right outlets. And they've been told to basically paint anybody who's anti-immigration as far right. And so if you aren't okay with your demographics of your country being irreconcilably altered and just changed to the point of no return. I mean, Britain, for example, has net inflows of over 300,000 immigrants a year. That's completely unsustainable. And the Tory government, the so-called Conservative government, said it's impossible to bring it below 100,000 a year when, I mean, what was it? It was a really short time period. I believe it was from like the 60s to No, it was a really, really short time period. It was like a 10-year time period where the immigration to the UK exceeded the immigration from the preceding 400-year period. It was something completely batshit insane like that. But the whole point is the media just goes out there to just obfuscate the truth and paint anybody who's against this crazy globalist mass immigration experiment as a Nazi or an extremist.
Well, easy way out for sure.
I'd have to actually completely and absolutely agree with that, to the point of anybody that's even against just European Union in general, or just wants immigration control, is now classified as alt-right. You're now a Nazi. You're now completely racist. You're Islamophobic, just because you want to have a little bit of control about who comes in and out of your country.
I have to say, after following Orwell and Goode for a while on Twitter, I think it's more likely he's a fucking furry.
Como arigato, Mr. Roboto. No, fix that shit. I can't hear you.
But no, I definitely have to agree with Orwell on that. That it is literally just a case of anybody that is now right of Lenin, and as he said, is now classified as alt-right. You're racist. You're a Nazi. Especially in Germany as well, where it's just a case of anybody that's now a sort of a point of trying to say, well, maybe we should have a little bit more better on immigration. Instead of it being a centrist party now, everybody's being pushed to the right. It's just like nobody can actually have a conversation on it anymore. So you're pushing people more to the right anyway. So the more that you push by not having the conversation, the more you're going to get more alt-right people.
Man, I just saw that on Fleckus Talks. Fleckus was making that same point. Carry on. It's more important they hear what you think. They hear what I think every fucking day.
Well, there was a case in the west of England where that more people were being referred for far-right extremism, and I mentioned that on one of my shows a week or so ago. So why on earth do you think more right-wing extremists are being created on the daily? It's because they see this huge existential threat that the government isn't addressing, but it's actually exacerbating. And they're basically saying anybody who's against this, well, there's something fundamentally wrong with that individual. That person isn't part of our society. That person's excluded. But what we'll do is we'll basically replace those kinds of working class racist individuals, xenophobes, and people who've been basically neglected by neoliberalism and globalization. And we're going to replace them with people who have absolutely nothing to do with our culture, history, heritage, values, language, or anything like that. And if you don't like it, well, you're just some sort of bigot, and we're going to celebrate your eventual phasing out.
Exactly, yes. Like in Sweden, where you actually have imams telling the cultural secretaries to burn, to melt the stuff of Vikings because it offends them. So they can't have it in museums because it offends them, because it's not haram.
Right. And look, I mean, in Belgium, there's an Islamic party whose intentions are clearly stated. We want an Islamic country. We don't want this to be a Belgian country. We want this to be Islamic. And you have these kind of navel-gazing academics and these appeasers who say, well, maybe we could try a two-party system, or maybe have parallel legal systems operating in the country. You can have our common law, alongside it, we can have Sharia, but that's just completely insane.
Yeah, I'm not even going to let you finish that. That's just what you just said at the end. That's just absolutely fucking insane. Sharia law is just not compatible with any form of law in Europe, let alone proper countries like United Kingdom, Germany, France, and Spain.
Well, and they're so crafty and such liars, such blatant liars, that they will come into the community and they will say things like, well, we just really want to be part of the community, and then they go up. I don't hear Dearborn, Michigan being talked about much. I just saw someone mention that, there was a case of female genital mutilation in Dearborn. Let me tell you something. I don't live far from Dearborn, and I get to drive through there about 2-3 times a year at least. And there are places where you don't see any women on the street without at least a veil on, and you do see majority of women wearing the full-on. They're very fundamentalists there, is what I'm trying to tell you. They're, another thing, look at Steven Crowder. He goes to bakeries in Dearborn and he says, I want a cake made. I'm gay. No, get out. Why? Where is the Southern Poverty Law Center? Where is the All Crazy Lunatics Unite, the ACLU? Where are they? Why aren't they rushing to the scene of this horrific? I mean, I can't believe it. And if you ever get to Michigan, to Detroit, for any reason, God knows why you would nowadays. Well, then go through Dearborn and see that I'm not lying. And I'm talking, folks, not just the way people are dressed. It's like you went back. You went to the Middle East. The curbs are high. The streets are mostly dirt in a lot of these neighborhoods. And I mean, it looks like freaking Baghdad.
I can tell you exactly why.
Your microphone, boys. Your microphone again.
Damn. Yeah, that
What's wrong
sucks.
with-
It's roboting, bro. Just press the refresh button on the Google Hangouts. Say yes, I want to come back again and see if that fixes it real quick, because we're all dying to hear what you got to say.
The other thing I wanted to say on top of what Ogre said, I mean, you have this in some places in the UK. I mean, Luton's a big one because, of course, they have an international airport there, which a lot of holiday makers use in order to escape to I don't know, Ibiza or Tuscany, wherever. And I remember going on rugby tour. This is back in 2012. I was very much a normie there. I had right-leaning sympathies. I mean, I was very anti-leftism and anti-socialism, but I didn't really have many grounded beliefs. But even like the lefties in our rugby team, we were all playing Spot the White Man when we were driving through Leicester in the team bus. It's just gotten to that stage. You even have people who kind of maybe support political correctness just saying, where are the white people? Where are they? You know, it's a famous English city for its crisps factory. It has the Walker's crisps, and obviously it's massively endorsed by Gary Lineker, who's a huge globalist. But that's not the point. The point is that you can. It's just gone so farcical that just anybody will start pointing this kind of stuff out.
Yeah, I mean, I originally moved from London to where I am now, and literally what you just said about spotting the white man, it was a case of when I moved about 10 years ago, I was playing that game. I was literally playing that game to the point where you could count on one hand in some areas how many you would actually see. Now, I'm not trying to say that that's a bad thing or a good thing. I don't really know. I'm not that educated. But generally, if you're in the middle of London and you're not seeing that many people that are native, surely that might be a bad thing.
Yeah, to quote John Cleese, you have to at least ask yourself, he does a long diatribe. I won't try to paraphrase at this moment, but his end result to what y'all are talking about right now is when you're in London and you don't see any Londoners, you got to ask yourself, what's happened?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Is my mic better or
Yeah, you're there, baby.
Go,
Yes.
go. Speak what you were saying. Speak, go.
no? I can tell you exactly right, because the majority of Muslims today are brown people. If the religions were switched and it was a majority white religion, no one would be defending it, because according to the lies and propaganda of identity politics, anybody brown can do nothing wrong. And that's not me being racist. That's going by their own, what would you say, cornerstones of their ideology. You know, that's why no one is attacking Islam, even though Islam is by far, by using the facts, if you go by country, is the worst religion in the world today, just the way Christianity was the worst back in the 14th century. You know, you can't deny these facts.
So what you're saying is then, if we wanted to stop Muslims in themselves and the actual religion, if all that we do is that we infiltrate it as pretending to be Muslims, as white people in general, that then it would be able to happen to go through a reformation, and then we'll be able to reform it from the inside.
No,
because, you know, we'll be a majority white people then.
No, it wouldn't reform it, but it would definitely confuse the hell out of the identity politics people. They wouldn't know what to do.
Fuck it, I've converted. Just so I can try and reform it from the inside. I'm going to buy my Quran next week.
I already have one.
Yeah. Well,
I had one. I did. I read a little bit of. I've also read Pearl of Great Price and the Book of Mormon. Both of those are books from the Mormons, the Latter-day Saints. I've read Morals and Dogma by Albert Pike. I've read Magic by Aleister Crowley. I don't, that's the problem that I have with these labels that we see they put on this gentleman. I shouldn't call him a gentleman. He's a fucking piece of garbage, just like anybody else would most of the way down the street. But this person, because, I mean, what if I don't like the, you can't just slap a label on somebody because they, I mean, I hate to say this, boys, but even if they do have a shrine, I don't know why. And maybe it's because he's nuts. Maybe if he wasn't nuts, he'd be able to explain why. Maybe those articles from those, Nazi articles came from dead Nazi soldiers, and he was, I doubt it. I mean, of course, he's there in Munster. Anyway, I'm done with this. There is, I mean, in my opinions, because I don't know what to say. I think the only reason we're seeing this is so they will lever it later.
Can I just quickly just say something? We're not when we were talking about the person that had a shrine, we weren't talking about the person that just drove the minibus in. We were talking about the bloke that murdered Joe Cox.
Oh, okay. Oh. Well, and to me, I don't know. Again, this person has already been pointed out. I don't want to go over too many things because we all got a short time here, and we do have this other story. I just, I don't want people to look at what I've read. I'm a Christian. I mean, everybody that knows me at least a little bit knows that's true. I don't push it on people as a rule, depending upon how much booze I've had. But I'm a Christian. But I've read Magic by Aleister Crowley. I mean, there's some people that if they saw that book in my house, they would go, "Oh man, we got to pray for old ogre. He's going straight to hell when he dies." And I don't think that's true. I do believe that it's good to research the opposition.
Well, if you're a Catholic, the Pope doesn't believe there is a hell, so you'd be fine there.
Yeah, I saw that. That's bloody weird, huh? They went from you go to hell for looking at a naked girl. He went from you go to hell forever or go to purgatory for 200,000 years to there is none. That was amazing.
Quick question for everyone. How would everyone feel if I invited somebody on from Germany? I believe that he messaged Orwell Goode as well, but I just thought that it might be a good idea if we have somebody on from Germany to give their perspective as well. Don't
bother me. No skin off my back.
Yeah, go for it, lad.
Yeah, I'll see if I can get him without going anywhere. You know how bad I am with technology. It does not work out well.
Yeah, because as I look at this second story, I really want to know what they mean when they say all far-right organizers, or, what do they mean by that? I would like to know the paraphernalia that they found, the evidence that they have. I don't really. Germany, man, they're out of control. I mean, they're just saying, okay, open it wide, open the son of a bitch wide, the F open, let them all flood in. Oh, that's okay. We got no-go zones now all over the place, and you wouldn't dare stand on the side of the road there and talk about give your heart to Jesus, they'll murder you. But then you got somebody saying, come on into the mosque, and if they see you having a few beers in Germany, they harass you. I mean, this is what kills me. I saw a video in London where these three muzzy kids, man, they were probably 19 to 24 years old in that range. They're harassing this Englishman, probably, I don't know, 60, 65 years old with a obvious, can of lager in his hand. They're harassing this guy in a public park where it's legal to have his tipple. And I just, man, when I see that, it makes me a little sick.
Yeah. No, there was a story in London around about, I don't know, I think it was about 3 weeks ago, where a couple of Romanians were drinking and a couple of Muslims asked them to stop, and there was a massive fight over it, to the point where a couple of people got put through windows and stuff like that. So it happens. It's a case that they've got these gangs that go around and they try to implement this Sharia law. I mean, as Tommy Robinson's put up before, you've got areas where it actually comes out to where they actually put signs up saying Sharia law under effect.
Oh my
God! Robinson actually had that shown. So how do you deal with things like that when they're just going around and the police don't even do nothing about it because they won't enter those type of places?
You throw them through a window, like you just said.
Yeah, exactly. And just furthering on what you're saying, there have been Sharia patrols recorded in places like Cardiff, Copenhagen, Germany. It happens. I mean, they try to get people to stop drinking. That's how it starts. And it's funny how you said that there was this confrontation between the Muslims and the Romanians over that. It's just one of these wonderful experiments that we see from multiculturalism. We hear about this gang warfare in the Calais jungle between like Afghans and Eritreans, or Kurds and Hispanics in America. It's just like, Jesus Christ, what are we doing? And these people would never ever have had such proximity if it weren't for these utopian politicians, utopian self-serving politicians who just basically open their borders to anybody in the world, and there's no real stigma attached to people just living off the dole. For example, I believe really high percentage of illegals in America just end up living on the dole, living off welfare. And I believe that about 50 or so % of people from Southeast Asia go on the dole in America too. And of course, I believe that 80% of Muslim women live off welfare. So these people aren't exactly contributing to society, and they just not only are they a fiscal burden immediately by their unemployment, but they add to the criminality. So there has to be more police presence, and of course you have this. It just gets to the point where you just have to cry at this, because just looking at the UK police accounts saying how we're going to be policing hate speech online. Oh, a butter knife, when used right, can be as deadly as a bayonet. That was the latest one.
Fuck's sake.
But
you know, I feel sorry for the builders, because like one day some poor builder is going to be sawing through a piece of wood, and the cops are going to come up. Sorry, that saw is just as dangerous as a bayonet. You know, where does it actually end? If butter knives are considered fucking dangerous weapons, which, by the way, to the policeman who said that, you're a fucking moron. You know, where's it going to stop? What is going to be not classed as a lethal weapon? You know.
Well, I'm almost sure it was OG's Twitter feed that I saw of there was actually a picture. I don't know, if that was yours, I want to know if it was doctored, where it showed a silverware package. It had a butter knife in it, and it said, like, warning, you're not allowed to sell this to anybody under 18 because of the possibility of it being used as a deadly weapon.
Yeah. And well, there was another one where there was a pitchfork and a couple of pliers that were in one of these halls from the police. Oh, we've taken these dangerous weapons off the street. So I made a joke about gardening licenses. And I wrote a dystopian satirical article on the future of Britain, just to go back to Voice of One's question, where they'd have to basically go around measuring your fingernails to see if they're too long. Just in case they could be used as dangerous weapons too.
Oh, I tell you what, those trannies have fucked them when they put on their false nails. Then,
yes,
yeah, the acrylic nails are going to be banned soon in the UK. Have you got a license for your nails?
Oh my goodness. Well, it just shows how far things can go if you give people, anyone in power, you give them power, tell them that they can start making laws that give them more power, and it goes nuts. And it's just what you get.
Yeah, no, I completely agree. I mean, going back to the story, you've got so many of these ideas that are now coming forward that are pushing people, not necessarily to do this, because I don't want to try and give the left any sort of credence to it or anything, but they are literally pushing people into different ideologies and different sets than what they would normally be. And people that already have possible mental illnesses are picking up on this, and they're actually listening to proper far-right rhetoric and actually possibly maybe doing something about it. Now, don't get me wrong, I'm not trying to say that it's the alt-right's fault, I'm not trying to say it's the left's fault, but surely somewhere along the line, you have to look at yourself and think, well, if we're pushing this anti-white rhetoric and this anti-racist points, are we not creating some of the racist and the racists in general? Are we not creating some of them?
Sure are.
I don't know. Maybe that's just me on that point. I just think that the more that the left keep on pushing, the more that people that are in the center keep on falling to the right, and the more people that are in the right already keep on pushing further to the right.
That's the way it is, the way it's going. I never believed, I knew there was going to be an outcry, because it does seem like the left in our country can't handle loss. They just can't handle it. It's either their way or you're immorally wrong. That's one of the reasons. But man, this last year with Trump in office, the racism that's been flung from the left, the sheer hatred, volatility. I mean, you look at somebody like, I know he's a broken record mentioning this kid, but David Hogg, that's got the guts, that has the complete lack of self-awareness to be able to go on television and talk about it and tweet about it with hundreds of thousands and millions of people listening to him, and call Laura Ingraham a bully because she laughed at the arrogant little bastard about him not getting into college, And then so what does he do? He bullies her. He uses his platform to, honest to God, bully her at where she lives, right at her living. And then that's cool. I mean, if anything, Trump being elected, I'm glad a lot of the policies that are being acted in the country right now, things are looking good. The trade's getting better, because of the rhetoric coming from other countries. I mean, I believe in the soybean thing, and I'm not going to go off in the weeds in that. All I'm saying is, been a double-edged sword. And yes, they're creating both sides, Antifa and this. I don't know, man. I really don't. When it's talking about alt-right, I think about Nazis and alt-right. They're like leprechauns. I guess they exist. I'm sure they do somewhere, but I ain't never fucking seen one. That's it, man. That's all I can say.
No, that's fair enough. I think we probably pulled this particular story to pieces. Shall we move on to the next one?
Oh yeah. This is
or did
German...
you want to talk about the special raids of the far right where they didn't actually catch anyone?
Oh, is that the one? I thought that's the one we were on. Which one do you want me to screen share here, Chief?
If you want to screen share the one that you're screen sharing.
Oh, yeah. Okay.
We can actually talk about that because the most important part of that one is the fact that they didn't fucking catch anybody.
Yeah, this says German special police raid homes, plural, of far-right movement. Berlin, AP. Germany's federal prosecutor's office says special forces have raided apartments across the country in connection with allegations that at least 8 people were involved in creating a far-right terror organization. The prosecutor's office said the raids took place Sunday morning and were targeting members of the far-right Reichsbürger movement that does not accept the rules of today's Germany, but identifies with the state system of the German, area from the 1871 to 1918. So it says authorities search homes in Berlin, this other place, and in eastern states of somewhere else on suspicions that the accused started forming an organization last year at the latest. Authorities were also investigating the killings of some people. Man, that's so weird, the wording even of some people. And say the group may have procured weapons to enforce their goals. The prosecutor's statement said no one was detained during the raid. So as you said, that's the bottom of the story, man. Nothing happened. They went looking for 8 people for, look at this. I mean, I don't know about you, but look at the wording on this, Orwell. Killings of some people. What? Just like what they do, go down to the police station and they found some cold cases, whipped them out. We're like, yeah, we'll ask about these murders. It's like, hey, where were you in 1962, right around the time JFK was shot, sir? It's like, what? I'm not even from fucking America, man. I'm sorry. This stuff kills me. Because you read this and it's just, when I see this, it looks like it's a load of propaganda shit to me from AP.
Yeah, no, I absolutely completely agree with you. It's why I wanted you to read the actual story. Simply because no one was fucking detained. So you've wasted all the time to go on raids on some sort of form of intelligence that is telling you that these people that you've raided or gone in to try and get, just, they're all right. They're absolutely horrible people. Yet you barge into their houses and you don't even detain them. Do you think there might be something wrong with your intelligence or your ideas of what's all right? I have a theory, and it might be the second.
Yeah, for sure.
What does everybody else think on that?
Well, I think, at least while they were doing this, they weren't locking up old grannies on Twitter. I mean, they locked up a 70-year-old grandma because she disagreed with immigration. So, yeah, as long as they're bouncing around the country doing fuck all, at least it's leaving normal people, good people alone.
Well, on Good, what do you think? Very good point, sir.
He's had enough.
That's all right. That's not a problem. Well, what does anybody else have anything to add to this story, or should we move on to the whole meat of what's going on for today? For my opinion,
well, it does bring up an interesting question. I mean, if they were looking for far-right terrorist organizations, why didn't they have some sort of evidence to say, okay, we know? I mean, it says here that where is it? That they have procured weapons. right? Well, surely there's a link back to where they bought them weapons. They had to bought them off a gun dealer, a black market gun dealer. So they should have been able to go to that black market gun dealer and say, okay, give us the names. I mean, that's how an investigation works. I would love to know what criteria, what evidence they were using for these raids.
Yeah.
And if they were, again, just using bullshit from Twitter or YouTube or something, I'd like to know what evidence they based these raids on.
I would like to know what evidence they did base it on, but I think you can look at what they've actually done by trying to work out your question, which is if they did have guns, then surely they would have been detained just on the possession of actual guns.
Thank you.
So that probably to myself would mean that they actually fabricated the evidence in itself to try and think that they had guns and can't prove that they did. So they can't even detain them on that. So that just proves that the story is completely fucked anyway. Well, I know that you've been itching to say something, so please try your sound now.
Hopefully it works. I was just going to say basically what we were saying earlier about this broad smear term, the Nazi thing. You had that fat activist who complained that I think it was Cancer Research who put out a billboard saying that obesity was one of the leading causes of cancer. She got triggered by this. But anyway, on Twitter, she proudly announced that she'd blocked 500,000 Nazis and lost some followers in the process. 500,000 Nazis don't exist.
No, thanks. Thank you. That was a joke. Straight out of the Nazis. Where?
Yeah, exactly. It's just completely absurd. These people are completely absurd, and I think that a lot of the premises of these raids are unfounded. We know that a lot of these sort of the 1.0 kind of hard right nationalist groups, a lot of them seem to be infiltrated by the authorities anyway. You hear all these weird anecdotes sprouting up around the place that they try to conduct raids on these groups, on these particular cells, but they find out that everyone involved is actually a Fed.
Yeah.
So they're basically just, it's basically just a self-detonating experiment, to be honest. But
it's almost a way for them to have cells in side communities that way they can rub shoulders with drug dealers and people smugglers and whatnot. And I'm not even kidding, because in my life, I've not always run with the best of society. I've not always run with the worst of society either, but I've had the opportunity to meet people from both sides of what you'd call the legal fence. And man, I have never seen a legitimate skinhead. Why? I've seen a bunch of bikers that deal meth and got hookers and take numbers for if you want to bet on the horses or take, they're just basically the mafia that ride Harleys and stuff. And I've seen all this, but I've never seen in my life a legitimate, and that's just, you just said it. That's the theory. I've heard Alex Jones say that. I've thought it myself many times. You just said it. That's the truth. If it's not, somebody prove it to me. Where are they at? And the only time you see quote unquote Nazis is when someone is calling them one. Someone could think that I was alt-right or that someone on the panel was alt-right. But unless you hear someone say, yes, this is what I am, then they're not standing for it, are they? Even if they were, and they wouldn't say it in public, well, they weren't a very good one, were they? And to me, that makes them nothing at all. So I just don't buy it, man. I say it a million times as a Jew boy. There ain't no Nazis. Grow up. Look out for Antifa if you want to worry about somebody. I suggest you don't worry about anybody, though, to be honest.
Is my sound quality crap?
No, it's perfect.
Fine at the minute, mate.
5 by 5.
Awesome. The other thing I just wanted to quickly add was there was this operation by the media last year. It was like at some event where this guy just dressed like an extra from Romper Stomper with tattoos, skinhead, wearing like dungarees or bracelets. I can't remember what he was wearing. But within the space of a few minutes, he managed to just disavow his former beliefs and hug a black guy. And the mainstream media all over it. This is so obviously staged. You've got to have like an IQ of about 70 not to realize that this is staged. And somebody had a closer look at his arm, and he had like the Democratic Socialist tattoo, that rose on his arm. Look, Jesus, who do you think you're fooling?
Well, it's a good gesture, but to act like it was real is what sucks. In other words, if they staged that and said, "Oh yeah, we're doing a little social play and a little, demonstration of how it could be," but no, they really do. I've heard this too. They're LARPers, boys. They're LARPers, lads. They're out there. They've never really. They're in a state of arrested development. They've never really grown up. A lot of cases, they went to college. They came right out of that controlled environment, couldn't find jobs because they took gender studies and got a fucking doctorate in gender studies. And that and $1.50 will get you a damn cup of coffee at the Speedway, because it ain't worth nothing else. It's not worth a dime.
Well, I did some research on this for a past video. And in America, counting every group I could find, that's KKK, the actual white nationalist, etc., and I could only come up with a number of about 5,000 to 8,000. Now, when you take into context that America has 350 million plus people, that literally is a fractional amount. But you have to remember that this is all about perception. Because in America, there's a large crime rate within black neighborhoods. Because in Europe, there is a lot of crime wave associated with the Muslims and African immigrants, etc. They can't allow that to be the main narrative. They can't allow people to perceive that as the real threat. So whether they make it up, this, what would you say, what's the word? This narrative of this now all of a sudden out of nowhere after almost 30 to 40 years of the Nazis and the KKK being nothing but a fucking meme, all of a sudden now there's this real and present danger. Again, it's all part of perception. It's a lie being told by the left, so no one focuses on the real issues. It's all about perception.
Yes.
Well, you do know that more blacks are killed by other blacks every year than were ever lynched by white people in like the last 150.
Yes.
No, they're all white people dressed as black.
They have internalized racism.
I thought that was the KKK. I thought that they were all black people dressed as white people.
Yeah, that's why they put the white hoods on, so you can't tell that underneath they're really jigaboos.
Oh,
You've been watching too much Dave Chappelle.
Hey, when I've seen it, it's like it shows that reality imitating art, because Dave Chappelle did the black white supremacist, and now there are Antifa LARPers running around calling black people white supremacists to their face. I mean, because they've got a hat on that says "Make America Great Again." Well, I know y'all have had to have seen some of the videos. They'll run right up to some black dude, some Indian feller, and they'd be like, "Hey, Abib, you're a white supremacist." They not even realize it.
I know you're joking about this, Ogre, but I was listening to a stream with who was it? It was Kevin Logan and Michael Rowlands. Who the fuck was ordering it? But Michael Rowlands literally said, even though Milo, a white guy who was born Jewish, who is married to a black person, is still a racist. He literally said, even if you love black people, you're still a racist toward black people. And this is a member of the left. So that's their thinking.
That really works. You love having sex with black people, and you want to marry one or do whatever, civil partnership, I think Milo would rather prefer. You've got all of that, but yet you're still racist because you say stupid stuff, apparently, according to the left. That's just an amazing narrative to even think about, isn't it? It's just absolutely amazing.
Well, Joseph Heller wrote about it in a book called Catch-22. And if you haven't read it, go out and read it. I don't want to spend too much time on the idea, but the idea was this in the book, that if you were a pilot and you had flown, I think might have been 22. If you flown a certain amount of missions, there was no way you could be sane. And if you were insane, why? You got to go home, right? But you couldn't say you were insane. And the only way to get your Section 8 stamp was to say, yeah, I'm crazy. So that was the catch-22, that even the military said there's no way you could be sane, but the only way to say that you were insane is for you to say it, and you can't be insane to say you're, see what I mean? It was just so that's what we have here, man. They throw these things at us that are circular logic, I think isn't that the correct term for it? It's circular logic that is trying to prove itself, a dog chasing its tail, vapor, smoke, and nothing.
Yep. That's basically
well, I think so. These people on the fringe radical left, I mean, they kind of believe in this unrealistic level of egalitarianism where everyone's just interchangeable, everyone's equal, and everything, every social difference thenceforth is a product of discrimination or prejudice or whatever. So while black people struggle economically or with criminality in Western countries, well, I mean, do you want to have a look at some uncomfortable data which may explain away these differences? Or do you just want to carry on believing these radical leftist lies? You kind of have a choice there. And while people still believe that the point of departure is that everyone is equal, you're never ever going to get anywhere, and you're always going to be racist until the end of time while the differences still exist, which unfortunately they will, barring some like utopian futuristic eugenics program.
Yeah, unfortunately, as we all well know and we've all said before, utopian ideas are completely fabricated because everybody's idea of a utopia is completely different.
Right.
Yeah, exactly. It's like the no true Scotsman fallacy, but applied to radical leftists. Like,
Yep.
you ask a room full of 1,000 socialists what their socialist utopia would look like, you get 1,000 different answers.
Yeah, I completely agree with that. Should we move on to the last story? Because I know that we've been on now for just coming up to an hour, and I know everybody wants to leave. So if we say about half hour at the absolute max of this last story, and then everybody can do what they want then.
I'll do my very best. It's getting cut for me. So I thought that was the last one. Where am I looking at now? So it's the breaking news: German police arrest suspect.
That's the one. Yeah,
from the Telegraph. Okay.
Yep, that's the one.
Pop this up real quick. Yeah, so it looks like coming out of the Telegraph, German police arrest a man suspected of terror plot on Berlin half marathon. So yeah, I seen this earlier today. Police in Germany are believed to have presented, this by the way was shown to me, Common Sense Guy, by Grab the Chopper, I believe, on Twitter. Just a small shout out. Great guy. Police in Germany are believed to have prevented a suspected terror attack on the Berlin half marathon on Sunday. 6 people were arrested in a series of operations around the city on suspicion of planning to attack spectators and runners at the event with knives, according to German press reports. Police would only confirm that 6 people between the ages of 18 and 21 were arrested on suspicions of planning a crime in connection with the race, which attracted an estimated crowd of 32,000 human beings. German media reported that the suspected ringleader is a known associate of Anus. Is that Anus? Somebody?
Anus.
I know. I'm going to call him Anus Emeril, a Tunisian ISIL and adherent. I'm not sure what ISIL is. I'm sure this is some ISIL. Okay, whatever. Adherent ISIL is ISIL. Is it the same thing? I thought they call it ISIL over here. That 1 week it's asshole, 1 week it's ISIL, whatever. These people. Taliban, Mujahideen, adherent who killed 12 people when he drove a truck into a packed Christmas market in Berlin, 2016. We all remember that attack. He'd been under surveillance for some time, and police decided to act when it became clear he and his associates were planning an attack, according to Welt newspaper. We're still evaluating, but the signs are it was close. The newspaper quoted an unnamed police officer as saying. Police had only been watching the main suspect for 2 weeks, according to some reports. The homes of the 6 arrested men were searched, and explosives were reportedly found at one of them. So at least in this story, we found the McGillicuddy boys. We didn't just get a story and it's like they looked and there really was nothing. They actually found some explosives. It is not clear whether they were intended for use on Sunday.
I think that really just says everything about the idea of multiculturalism, doesn't it, really? We've had, 3 stories now that basically have just been proven that the more that you push this narrative, the more people go to the right and start talking about what needs to be talked about. And then you also have the opposite side of this spectrum, or the opposite side of the coin, where you actually have proof that this terrorist organizations and terrorist sympathizers are actually doing stuff about it and actually planning attacks. So where do you go there? Is there not enough evidence for you leftists? Is there not enough evidence for you to prove that this actually happens? Or do you need more people to actually die and perish.
Yeah, common sense. Can you remember a Muslim butchered a soldier to death in the street? Do you really think, and that wasn't enough to convince the leftists, do you really think them having knives is going to convince them? And on a second note, since I was talking to Nazi Free this morning on Twitter,
Yeah, I saw
do you
that.
notice the stories, Nazi? Knives and trucks, no guns, just saying.
Yeah, right.
Yep. No, I saw that. It was a very interesting conversation on Twitter about that. But no, you are correct. In places where they don't have guns, terrorists and people that really want to hurt people are going to find a way. So they're either going to use their guns, they're either going to use explosives. Sorry, they're not going to use guns because they don't have guns. If they're going to use explosives, they're going to use knives, or they're going to use vehicles. So they're going to use something to actually kill and hurt people as much as possible. In this case, it was knives. Unfortunately, for the other story, it was a car. It just goes to show you if people are crazy enough to do it and are determined enough to do it, they will do whatever it takes. Not going into a gun debate, but it just shows you that fact.
Yeah, whatever there's a will, there's a way, right?
Exactly.
So, and I mean, look, I think all you guys have seen that London has finally leapfrogged New York for the first time in 218 years in the murder rate per capita. Plus, it's exceeding it with burglaries, rapes, and other petty crimes as well.
Jeez.
Especially acid attacks.
Yeah, and the other thing to bear in mind is the demographic breakdown of New York and London are pretty similar, except for the fact that London has a lot more Muslims.
Yeah, and people are wondering why crime rates are going up. There is a correlation between the fact that more immigration is happening to the point of more crime is happening. Obviously, we know correlation doesn't mean causation, but kind of implies it.
No, but statistics like that, you got to feel like if you were a black man, you'd be going, yeah, man, come on, Muzzies. You'd be taking over the mantle of worst bastards on the block, you know?
I suppose so. I suppose you would kind of think that. But at the same time, I honestly do think that most people would be of the case of, we don't want you here. You're causing too much problems.
No, it was a terrible joke gone awry.
I know, mate. I know. That's why I carried it on.
Hey, but it is kind of true, I guess. I know correlation doesn't show causation. We can say that when we talk about that when ice cream sales go up here in Michigan, the number of drowning deaths go up. We can say that ice cream doesn't necessarily make you a bad swimmer because of that. It's probably summertime, and so people are swimming and eating ice cream. But
you're wrong. You're wrong. You shouldn't swim on a full stomach.
I hear that's also a urban legend. But in either case, so maybe ice cream, but all foods. But in this situation, it is hard to ignore correlation. We still do correlational studies. That's a big part of psychology. You do correlational studies, sometimes correlational generational studies, where you look at different blocks of people from different races, different all kinds of different backgrounds, different religio-political backgrounds, all these things, and you see the decisions they make, and maybe you can find a reason they make these decisions. No, that doesn't always work, but I don't want people to overlook it, or to every time someone brings up a correlation say, well, don't shrug it off, man. You got to look at this. Or, hey, it's not the Muzzies. It's just, who knows? It's the tooth fairy.
Yeah, I mean, just because I was saying about causation, and it doesn't mean that there's a causation. I wasn't saying that there isn't a correlation. It's just a case of you have to, for anybody, you have to look at different bits and pieces and then work out that there is something there for you to be able to create a hypothesis, to be able to prove the hypothesis. So for there to be seen a correlation, you can make a hypothesis on it.
Common sense guy, Ogre, you're using logic and reason. You're confusing any SJW watching.
Fuck off. All of you SJWs, fuck off. Does anybody else have anything else to say on this last story? Because I know everybody wants to get off.
I'd love to get off. You offering?
I will come round and I will suck you later, but
no.
Other than that, does anybody else want to continue on the story? Or shall we call it a day?
Yeah, I'm good. It was fun, though.
Orwell?
Yeah.
Oh, thanks for the stream. All I just wanted to quickly say was my buddy and I believe that this is going to be a pretty rough summer when it comes to Europe and enduring the old attacks. There was a report that was published about a month or so ago from the UK that found that only 2/3 of terror attacks were being thwarted by the intelligence agencies. So it's still pretty worrying that 1/3 of them managed to slip through the cracks.
It is, to be fair. It is very, very worrying that they're all starting to slip through the cracks again. It really is, because everybody's just not really paying attention to immigration anymore.
No.
It's not that fussed. It's just it comes up every now and again. Like it will do now. Now that this story's come out about the knives and then maybe a part of the terrorist attack, it will come up again. Immigration will come up. People will be talking about it for about a week, and then it will go again. And then nothing will get done. No reforms will happen. Nothing will happen at all. Just the same old stuff.
Yeah, I don't doubt it. Well, I just want to quickly say, with all these stories, remember, if you see your neighborhood changing demographic, your neighborhood, like what's happened in Pottstown, Pennsylvania, where in 1990 it was something to the effect of 0%, I believe, immigrants, and right now it's over 50% Mexican and south of the border immigrants. The main language there in Pottstown now is Spanish. Look, if you look around, you see that happening. You're not evil if you're white. Look, black folks don't allow it. And where they do, they saw what was happening in Watts. And I'm not going to go too long. This is all I want to say. No matter who you are, black, white, Hispanic, if you see people encroaching on your neighborhood where you're blending in, you are American, you do go out, or British, or wherever you are, you fit into your society, you go out, you do your daily, but you do like to come home to people like yourself. Don't be ashamed of that, no matter who you are. In fact, I would encourage everyone that if you see that happening in any way, and they try to force these made up, rearranged definitions of things like diversity, stand up as quickly as you can and as calmly as you can. Tell them, no, we'll have none of that. Get out of our neighborhood. Get out of our councils. Get out of our whatever positions of power you're in. We're going to get some people that actually have common sense. And that's all I got to say. Be good to your friends and family. There we go before you know it.
Thank you very much for that, Ogre. Thank you very much to the voice of one. I got it fucking right, finally.
Yo!
And thank you very much to Orwell and Goode for coming on as well.
It's been a pleasure.
With that, I'm not going to ask anybody to have a final word. I'm just going to bid you farewell, bid you adieu, and I'll see you all again real soon. Bye-bye for now.